Hello, this is Dyer with Divergence Analysis. We're looking at the DVAN SmartLines package on the TradeStation Trading App Store. Wanted to go through a few equities on the eve of the election results to show how we can use DVAN SmartLines to analyze equity spaces, daily and weekly charts. I'm going to focus on sector ETFs and a few commodity and bond ETFs to get a good general overview of how we can use DVAN SmartLines to make clear analysis of major trends and equity trends in the market. Starting with XLF, the financial ETF, these are all spider ETFs that I'm using, at least for the sectors. If we're looking at a daily chart, we can see a few fluctuations in the cycle over the past few months, but we're currently in a nice green buy cycle. We have long-term trend, which is the indicator below, showing that we're remaining in a bullish bias. The one mixed signal we're getting is currently in the short-term cycle, which is kind of telling us that in the short term we can expect a pullback to support, but because we're still in the nice buying cycle as indicated by the green shading here, the long-term trend is bullish. We would expect perhaps a pullback to support. We can see the support and resistance levels with the cycle lines. So our first support level will be 1977 on a daily basis. Major support is the pivot line, which is the blue line that runs through the cycles here. We can see as long as we hold 1971, we're confident in the bullish nature of XLF. Moving to XLU, which is a good one to look at for kind of risk on, risk off purposes. Right now, XLU is in a buying cycle. It's been somewhat consolidated, but it's breaking out into a buying cycle. What's most interesting here is that the long-term trend is perhaps moving bullish, and the oscillator, the cycle indication in the short-term cycle is turning green above zero. So this is looking like it's going to make another attempt to the upside, which is interesting for rate purposes. Rates going up is not good for the utility space, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. XLE, this is a popular one, especially over the past year or so with energy prices fluctuating to the downside so much. This is XLE on a daily basis. Everything is remaining pretty negative. You can see a nice clear selling cycle. The short-term trend remains down. The long-term trend is still bearish bias. It's getting a little bit closer, and we can see that as it's bounced from its lows up to a major resistance level on the daily right here at around 69. From this, we would expect, because the long-term trend has remained bearish and the short-term trend is still a red histogram, we expect this to move back down and at least test this next support level of 68.34. XLV, healthcare. This has major implications with the election of whether Trump or Hillary get elected. This has obviously been in a huge downtrend over the past few months and longer. Currently, XLV is sitting at some resistance after bouncing again. We would expect this is majorly bearish, so we're going to expect some attempts back down to the lows at least before this recovers in a bigger way. TLT, this is iShares ETF, the 20+ year treasury. Once again, with the threat of rates raising, the more hawkish statements coming out, this is looking negative over the past few months. We're seeing some consolidation. We're seeing some bottoming formations, which you can also see using the short-term cycle. If you look at the leading line and gauge the leading line versus lows in prices, you can see that while prices are higher here than they are here, the indicator is lower. So that's a clear divergence, which is showing us that we might get a little bit of a test back up, but for the most part, we're looking at all bounces to meet resistance and move back down because the long-term trend is very bearish here. Gold, which is another key indication of what market participants are thinking and whether there's fear in place or not. has been bullish in the shorter term over the past week or two. You can see it broke out of its selling cycle. As it breaks the cycle, it's breaking resistance and giving indication there could be further bounce. When the cycle, in this case, closes back in, this is a good example of the cycle expanding and contracting. This buying cycle, when it closes back in, as you can see the lower line moving back up, this tells us that that expansion is likely to pause for a while, which led to this fall back down to daily support. What's most interesting is this has indicated with the short term and the cycles breaking resistance that there might be a short-term bounce. Now we're watching the long-term trend to see if this might turn into a bigger, longer bullish trend. So far, not yet, but it's in that space where if it holds support, if the short-term trend remains green histogram, and then the long-term trend closes above its baseline into a bullish bias, we could see some more expansion of gold to the bullish side. Lastly, I wanted to show SPY on a weekly basis to give kind of a broader picture. That's gold on a weekly basis. Here's SPY, the Spider S&P 500 ETF. Obviously, since around the beginning of September, we've pulled back a little bit with some uncertainty with the rate raise, with the election, and other equity pricing globally. So we've pulled back. We're not seeing this turn into a longer term downtrend yet, as we see here. So this short-term trend gave us a good warning when we broke support of the buying cycle. That was good warning that we might see some further downside. But because the long-term trend is still up, we expect downside attempts to meet support and to move back up until we see something further indicative of weakness on the long-term trend. Hope this helped you get a viewpoint of how we can use DVAN SmartLines to analyze a basket of equities. DVAN SmartLines is also applicable trading intraday futures, commodities, currencies. Hopefully, if you're interested, you can go to the trading app store, search DVAN, and take a look at our indicators. Thank you.